Magdalene's blog 45. The caravan moved at a slow, relentless pace, but my donkey needed a lot of encouragement. Getting left behind was another thing I couldn't afford to happen. Keeping myself together during that whole day's travelling, with the demon voices circling around in my mind like vultures, was exhausting. I was semi-consciously repeating the word Ankh over and over, trying to get to its meaning, which I had learnt through Ariane. Looking back, I knew that my training and experience as a priestess was giving me some means to detach myself from what was happening inside me, but the effort was rapidly consuming my reserves of strength. Effort that brought no release, but only managed to keep me in a kind of limbo, a stalemate with no purpose, and one which I had no idea how long I could keep going. By the time camp was reached that evening, I almost wished to be dead, leaving this pointlessness behind. Except I didn't even dare acknowledge this, for death itself didn't guarantee any release, maybe quite the opposite. I stayed by myself, away from the communal fires, and ate flatbread from my provisions. Someone at the temple had provided me with more than I would need for Belle's prescribed 3 days. Once again Granny Beth's words came back to me, and I knew my time of need was here, and hope almost grew in me at all these little kindnesses. It wasn't too cold, but I checked all the items that Ariane had packed in my bag. There were spare undergarments and a dark dress, as well as my other pair of sandals. Most surprising, at the bottom, folded as flat and small as possible, was Ariane's old green priestess cloak. She had 2 others, but this further act of kindness, in defiance of the high priestess herself, meant the world to me. I wrapped myself in the green cloak underneath the dark travelling one, trying to get some scrap of comfort from it, without much success. Falling into exhausted sleep brought menacing dreams where the evil spirits were dragging me down long dark slopes that evoked huge dread in me. Every time I was about to reach that it was I so feared, I awoke in a sweat of terror, only to find that my reality was much the same as the dream. There was no escaping this darkness, no simple rest or sleep without returning to the slopes of fear. It was an awful night, with no prospect of a better day to follow. The pit of my stomach felt knotted in despair, clenched like a fist around what I wanted least, a loneliness that had driven everything else away except the demons of my wrongness. This and they remained to gnaw away at me, to ensure that I understood how I deserved to suffer. Trying to keep things going on the second day was worse even than the first. I could feel the devils awaiting their moment, living off the little crumbs of emotion that my human condition automatically provided. Despair mostly, but any of the feelings that we took for granted became their food. Their hunger for the basic stuffs of life was palpable. I knew, and they knew, it was only a matter of time before I would break down, and they would be able to gorge their hunger and thirst on my unguarded mind and soul. This inevitability became my torture, not knowing how and when, but certain of what was going to happen. Unless, if only I could reach the temple at Tyre. The approaching storm within me held off until the evening, and I started to think that if I could get through another night, then maybe. I remembered as I tethered my donkey with the rest of the animals, just how terrifying last night's sleep had been, and I recoiled from the idea of travelling those paths again. The claustrophobic feeling of constriction and being locked in with the devil's spirits got the better of my vigilance, and I pulled my hood back to better feel the coolness of the evening against my face and hair. Too late, I realized there was a driver watching me, and his features registered some surprise that I was not the elder priestess they had believed was travelling with them. And I couldn't stop my mind registering how he looked as well, young and free and quite handsome too. That very moment of exposing my fatal weakness was my undoing. In my pride as priestess, I would have relished the moment, knowing each nuance and look, controlling where the encounter would or would not go. Not now, though. I pulled the hood over my head again as I turned and hurried back as quickly as I could to my secluded spot, away from the dangers that other humans were to me now. But nothing had gone unnoticed by my inner attendants. They hungered for flowering lust to grab onto, and a glimpsed pride was enough to get to it perhaps, whilst I scrabbled inside myself to regain some self-possession, no matter how. The driver had decided to take my coyness as an invitation for him to come to me, out where no one would intervene. My balance was all gone, no chance to defend my mind from what was coming. His approach was confident but not brash, and I tried to turn away and show no interest, but instead I found myself staring towards the tall form, searching out his dark eyes in the moonlight. The waiting spirits had overpowered my feeble resistance and pushed themselves to the fore. The driver didn't immediately realize there was anything wrong, only that his advances were being readily accepted.